should send in the topics you're working on. Like you guys should have already gotten that. I think yesterday was the deadline, but would allow you send it today, and today will be the final day to receive all of your sending topics you're working on. Yes, yes. Okay, sure. So for step two, we this is kind of like what this the next submission you'll be requested to make. This is when you have figured out your project, what you want to work on. You'd send us a very short video describing the project. You then send us a short business plan document about the project, and you'd send us the GitHub details so that we can track. Our judges are actually on ground to, go through your codes, go through your commits, and see what you've done within the short time you've been given. The next step is that we would go through all of the submissions we receive. And this step two would actually start on the 10th and end on the 17th of April, right? And we'll go through all of the submissions you've made, you sent to us, and we'll select 10 best groups, that would feature in the live demo, right? In the live demo for about 90 minutes. That's basically going to be at a later date, right? So the criteria for choosing these 10 people is that, you should have a, well composed and packaged project. The usability of the project is another very important thing you should look out for when selecting. And then how innovative is it, in this particular region, since we are kind of like starting off in Africa. And then what's your marketing strategy for the project? This is kind of like a full-blown pitch. It's a strategy you want to use to get you fully integrated into the system, right? And then how did you document the project? This is basically technical. And then your team cooperation and coordination. So we expect that all team members are actively involved in these projects and at different stages. We've gotten questions that border around, can every team member be involved in every phase of the project? If you have the strength, if you have the strength and dedicated team members, sure, you can get them involved in all the stages. But what we advised is that split the different tasks in the entire process to different team members so that it can be somehow more of a division of labor. And let's see how that goes, right? So the deadline for submission of your project is basically on the 17th, right? Like I mentioned. And then we've gotten a very conducive date for the live demo, and that will be on 24th of April. So about a week after submission, we would have been done scoring your projects. Would have a set of panelists that would, look at the project of those who qualify at least to demo. And two of them are on the call already, very interesting persons. Would have Chuta from Blockchain Nigeria User Group, and I think Blockchain 1000 Devs. Would have Oluchi and Akin from Bundle. You are already familiar with those faces. Those guys have been very supportive throughout the project. And you also have Babs. Babs is on the call. Babs is also going to be very available to. I think he's very good with the in the area of marketing and the business development of those kinds of projects. You'd have Yele. Yele has been your course facilitator since the beginning of this program, right? Those are the judges I'll be looking at your project. So we expect that it would be a very, very transparent process for this one. All right, so that's basically what you want to take into consideration. This document has been shared with you, but I would also share more details about this with you because of want of time. All right, guys, I think that's it from my side. Let me hand you over to the facilitators for today. We are starting off with Ugo from Xend Finance. Ugo, would you just like to say hi, give us a short description of yourself, and then you have the floor.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Ugo Arono. I'm the founder and the CEO of Xend Finance. So my background is in engineering. I've been on the blockchain for over 4 years. I got into crypto in like 2017 on the engineering side of things. Yeah. So I've been, trying to develop like teams, develop people to be able to build more, do more on the engineering side of things on the blockchain. Yeah, I've founded like a couple of startups. Like when I finished university in 2015, founded a couple of startups. Then, started also moving into crypto, and that's why I am here now. Trying to speak to you guys, and I hope it's going to be it's going to be an interesting session. Yeah. Thank you.
Do I introduce myself?
Yeah, Yele, you have the floor next, but let's just allow him wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm actually done with my introduction. I'll still talk about it more when I share my screen and all that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Yele. I'm the CEO of Bundle Africa. My background is in a combination of finance and entrepreneurship. Before founding Bundle, I started a fund called Microtraction. It's one of the most active early stage venture firms in Africa. We've invested in about 23 plus companies. Majority of our companies have ended up getting into YC 500 startups and tech stars. Some names might be familiar to some people, such as Bycoins, Bitsika, Wallets Africa, Cowrywise, 54 Gene, and a lot more companies. But in 2018 or probably 2019, I joined Binance as a director for Binance Labs, and I was one of the first kind of African employees where I focused on investing in blockchain and digital currency projects, including Xend Finance and Decrypt or Ycrypt, and that's how me and Ugo got connected. And we also backed other companies like Bitsika Raise, Yellow Card, which also raised money from Andreessen Horowitz, and then help Binance build out and expand into Africa with our senior men like Emmanuel and Ben taking on the model and doing even way more than I ever imagined. So it's been incredible to see the growth of the blockchain ecosystem in Africa. I'm super excited to be here because whilst sort of at Binance Labs, my desire, my goal was to run a program like this, which is we wanted to invest in over 50 plus African projects, and there were just no teams, right? There were no developers, there were no Africa-based, blockchain projects. And we knew that, developers were key to solving this problem. And we had seen it in the previous sort of like in the Web2 world, right? So I'm super excited that we have engineers learning how to build on Binance Smart Chain. I personally believe that Binance Smart Chain, is the right fit for Africa. And, I'm super excited to, I guess, share my story, share my lessons and insights on how to think about the business and entrepreneurship side of building blockchain projects. And hopefully, in the near future, we will be investing in, projects and individuals that have taken part of this program. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, guys. That was actually very interesting. So let's go straight to the course for today. We'll start off with Ugo, and then Yele will wrap up for today. Go ahead, Ugo.
All right, cool. Just give me a second. Let me share my screen. Um, Please let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes, yes.
This is just 1 second. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me know. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Great. Let me minimize. There's so many things on my screen at the moment. Let me try to. Yeah. Minimize a couple of things. Okay. Great. So yeah, my name is Ugochukwu Arono. I'm going to be talking about well, building a successful DeFi project. Well, the topic is a little bit well, I don't know if I can really talk about it in totality because we are still building a DeFi project that is looking successful, right? And we believe it's going to be successful. But yeah, I'm super excited that I was given an opportunity to speak to the Binance community about this. Okay, yeah. I think I'll start. Yeah. So a little bit about my background. I studied in the University of Nigeria. Well, it's popularly known as UNM. Graduated in 2015. I studied electronic engineering. So my background is in engineering. But then, started working on. I started focusing mostly on software. While I was in school, and yeah, when I left school, worked for a software company. Also worked for KPMG, and then yeah, and now after working for the software company, I founded my own company at the time called Ugasoft. What we were doing was we actually built software for businesses, for schools, for financial institutions, and then we have like smaller products within the company, that we actually use to, well, prefer or offer services to businesses and individuals. Yeah, so after founding Ugasoft, we started working on another project. I worked on a project called Ycrypt. It's peer-to-peer internet sharing, and then now worked on Xend, which is made up of, we have Xend Finance, which is our decentralized financial product. So I've worked on a couple of startups. I advise a couple of startups, mostly in engineering, in the engineering side of things. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, but I spend most of my time in engineering, to be very honest. Not like I can't answer some business questions. Of course, I can, but then because I've interacted with a lot of business people, you just have to, right? But then I focus mainly on the engineering side of things, and I like it a lot. It's a lot more, well, sits better with me. Yeah. So a little bit about Xend Finance. So Xend Finance is a DeFi platform for cooperatives and credit unions, for individuals as well, that provides multi levels of interest by aggregating different DeFi lending protocols. And we do that so we can achieve very high yields, and also give the users or the participants of in this protocol token rewards, and we actually focus on financially people living in or stable economies, people who are financially underserved. These are our target audience. And when you look at this audience, you realize that most of these people are not crypto savvy. So that's in a nutshell what we do at Xend Finance. I'm supposed to be talking about, well, building a successful DeFi project. And I was able to break this down into 3 parts. Well, the first is the team, the second is the product, and the third, your partners or investors or your community, right? And please, if you have any questions, always just write it down, because coming into this class, I had an assumption that, well, most people here are going to be engineers or developers, so you must have come across the word decentralized finance before, maybe smart contracts or some things. But if there are things that you still do not understand, I can always go back when I'm done with the presentation. Yeah, so let me move forward. So first is the team. I'll really say that this is mostly, I think this is the most important part of any project, the team. So my team, I've been working with my team for over, say, 5 years, right? Across multiple projects. Actually, myself, my CTO, were classmates in the university. So we've known ourselves for, say, about 10 years now, right? So, and it helps, to be able to work with people that you have very good relationship with, people that, see things not exactly the way you do, but always give you objective feedback, about how things work, and people who are very eager to work with you and, have that same vision, or you have visions or goals that align. It's very essential when building any project at all. And our team is majorly based here in Nigeria. Let's say about 80% of the team or 85% of the team is based here in Nigeria. We all engineering is done here in Nigeria. We actually have we're trying to also, of course, become internationally diverse by having, well, software engineers work from other parts of the world, which we've started like seeing how to recruit some people. But the underlying technology, everything that has been done so far, right, was built by us here in Nigeria. We basically don't outsource any stuff at all. And I'm really happy to always say that, because that's the essence of this whole program. Really, is to be able to build blockchain developers. And usually there's this misconception that maybe most people who are here or who are in Africa might not be able to do this, but I know that, yeah, we were able to do it. So it's very, very possible, regardless of the complexity. It's really possible to achieve. Yeah, so going back to the team, I know that building a team that aligns with you, that understands the vision, that sees things the way you do, is very essential. And people who are there for the long term. Over time, of course, some people have joined my team, some people have left. We realize that the core team, they've always been there, through thick and thin. And this is very essential, because most investors, when they invest in projects, they don't really just invest in the project. The first thing they look out for is the team. Who are the people? Because an idea might die, right? A product might die, but then the people who are there, right, are the people who can always make changes, who can always improve or bring up other ideas. So it's very essential that the team has this very strong bond, and that they're able to work over time. So there are some things that shouldn't be problems. And at times you come to teams, co-founders having problems, which it's normal, but in the long run, you realize that if the vision is seen by both parties, and then both of them understand the long-term goal, they should be able to move together regardless of whatever disputes that might result. Because if it's going to be about disputes, there will be a lot of disputes. So the second thing is the product. Now, what are you building, right? When we talk about DeFi, I know it's a buzzword. It's a word that has been, I think, for the last, about 9 or 12 months now. It's been out there, DeFi, decentralized finance. So everybody wants to do something that has to do with DeFi. Okay, but then the problem with that, sorry, one second. The problem with, sorry, let me share my screen again. Yeah. So the problem with just always trying to jump on a trend is that you might feel you have something that maybe you feel this is just, hype and all that. But over time, you realize that when the hype dies, it's value that people will look out for, right? So DeFi has been there. It has been a buzzword in the crypto community. It's something that whenever you mention it, people, look at you and want to know what are you building. So, but then that's where the product comes in. What problem are you trying to solve? Okay, are you just trying to replicate what some other person has done exactly, right? Like you see some existing projects, what they just do, they go to like GitHub, fork an existing project and then just maybe change the skin and deploy it and go to raise money. I mean, I personally, like, I really don't support that, because I don't see the problem you're trying to solve by just recreating what someone has already made, right? So these are the things we look out for. Your product, does this solve the problem? Okay, is there a particular audience you're targeting? What are you really trying to do? What's the long-term play for this project? So you need to be able to look at your product and try to ask yourself those questions, and as well answer those questions. It's very important. If you're unable to do that, then you need to take another check at what you're trying to do. But the beautiful thing about decentralized finance is that there are so many applications some people have not thought about. And one amazing thing about having decentralized systems is that you can easily build more projects or more products on existing ones. In fact, most decentralized products now, or DeFi products, actually have connections to some other products, right? And it's amazing how things can easily connect to themselves and then solve real problems, or build or scale, or do something that is really remarkable, or something that is really amazing. So you don't really have to also restrict yourself to just what maybe trying to solve the problem on your own. By on your own, I mean just building everything from ground up. There are already existing DeFi projects that are out there, and of course, the code is open. You can always go integrate smart contracts. Of course, you can easily integrate smart contracts, across board. You can plug into existing smart contracts, core functions, do things that will enable your product scale easily. But recreating what someone has already made, without having any extra, or, just changing the skin or changing the name. I mean, I think it's a total waste of time. And once the hype dies out, that's how the product will die out. Yeah. Then the last thing here we're talking about will be the partners, the investors, and then the community. So most times before you start a project, or when you're about to start a project, you have people, you have like investors, you have the partners that you're going to partner with, or you have your community that you're developing, right, to support or to help you push your product. Because one thing, especially in the crypto, in the blockchain space, your community is too important, right? It's community driven most times. It's not something an individual can do on his own or on her own, right? So it's something that you need these partners, you need the investors, and you need the community. Now, most times, right, people are so eager to raise money, right, without looking at who they are raising the money from, or without looking at who the funds are coming from, without doing some background check, or knowing who your partner or who your investor is. To be honest, when you have a great product, when you believe you have a great product, because you might not really know. That's why I also said the title of this presentation might be a little bit tricky for me, because I can only say we are successful, right? It's a continuous thing. It's not something at the end of the day or at the beginning you can say, oh, I'm successful. It's a continuous process. Every other day, it keeps on compiling. So that's the way I see it, right? I see it as things that add up over time. So when you believe that your project, right, is a good one, right, and based on some milestones you've hit, you believe that, yeah, this is actually adding up, and overall, we're having something that seems to be great. You almost don't need to, well, in quote, take money from anybody, especially when you understand the value of what you're building, right? So at times you see investors just throw money at you, say, oh, I want to give you this amount and all that. you quickly just want to write the agreement and the SAFT or whatever agreement and share with them. It's very important for you to know that when you're signing a deal with an investor, they are there for the long term. I know people might argue, especially when it comes to the raising token instruments and then equity. Yeah, but it's still the same thing. When you have a partnership with someone or you sign an agreement with an investor, it's a long-term play, right? So it's always important that you try as much as possible to pick the investors that work for you, that you want to invest in your project. And of course, the projects that will not like invest money, but projects that you partner with. Say, for example, you're integrating their projects into yours, or they are integrating theirs into yours. For example, at Xend Finance, we partnered with real world credit unions and applications of fintechs that aggregates these credit unions, right? So that's a partnership. I realize that it's actually helping us drive to our overall goal of having at least up to 10% of these credit unions, right? Up to 10% of the overall market value, which is about $2.2 trillion, right? Overall market in about 10 years. So partnering with credit unions or fintechs that aggregate these credit unions or these cooperatives, or people that even just train individuals to be able to save or maybe take loans on a DeFi protocol like ours, actually helps. So you see that these kind of partnerships, they don't invest money, but they invest their time, they invest their energy, and it helps drive you towards your end goal. Okay, so these are things that you have to really assess before you actually pick some investors, because over time you realize that some investors can be really, really, really annoying, especially when, of course, they are already there, and I've heard different stories from different founders, and people just regret why they chose certain investors. So you have to be very careful about that. Then the final part of this is the community. So the community still is made up of your partners, your investors, everything. But now in the community, you might have maybe smaller, let's say retail investors, people that maybe buy your token. That is if you're minting a token, right? People that buy your token, people that help you with marketing, people that just put word out there for you, people that also advise you. So the good thing about the blockchain community, and I mean, I've had an amazing experience, with the community, our Xend Finance community, and the overall blockchain community. This is the first time, right, to be honest, that I'm entering a digital space, and you just feel welcome. You feel like, okay, I'm supposed to be here, right? And it's a beautiful experience, honestly, because at times, let's say you're dealing with people who don't really understand the whole blockchain thing and all that. It's really very, very difficult to have communications. I'm not even talking about the technical part now. I'm talking about like just regular conversations. But getting into the crypto space is as if it's very easy, right, for people to communicate. Like information flows very easily, and there's a lot of transparency, which is what makes it even better, right? So having that community, building a very good community, it has to be intentional and you have to be consistent. It's not easy, but there are people that have experience in this field, and that's also why you need to have great partners. The people that experience in marketing in different regions of the world, people that understand how the lingo, the manner for which you can communicate to get some certain people, to come into your community to look at what you're doing. So having access to these people is something that is really remarkable. And the beautiful thing again about the blockchain community is that, you see so many people in maybe on TV or online, maybe for example, like Yele that is here. He's a very big guy in Africa in the crypto. You can't speak about crypto in Africa, without talking about Yele, for example, or the Binance team and all that. When you're in for example, Telegram, where everybody is, and someone is like, hey, maybe you're looking at getting into crypto in Africa, and it's like, okay, I can easily connect you to XYZ person. And in less than 1 minute, there is a group you can connect and you can start talking, right? So it makes life very easy. People are welcoming in the crypto community, you understand? So, and it makes it makes things very, very interesting. So it's always very important for you to know that these I merge these three factors into one, because I think they are okay. They complement each other. Like they are one and the same, but I just try to break them up. So this is something that you really have to consider. You cannot build a successful DeFi project. Well, from my knowledge, thus far, you can't build a successful DeFi project without having your partners, without having investors and a great community. It's going to be really difficult because you will be in isolation. Yeah. So a quick summary about Xend Finance is we are a DeFi lending protocol aggregator. We provide like high yields to the financially underserved. So we bring in multiple DeFi lending protocols like Compound, Ave, Venus, Fortune. Well, these protocols are in no particular order, because I'm talking about people from the Ethereum blockchain, from the Binance Smart Chain. And yeah, Xend Finance is actually, it runs on multiple blockchains. But like, we chose Binance Smart Chain as our first blockchain to deploy and make public, because it serves the audience which we want to serve very well. It scales a lot better with less fees. It's EVM compatible, very fast. So it helps us serve the financially underserved people who are in unstable economies. Deploying things on the Ethereum blockchain can be very expensive. People who want to save and earn interest in a place like maybe Nigeria and other parts of Africa or some Asian countries, where they have unstable economies, you realize that they don't really have a lot of capital. So having someone maybe save like $50 and then the gas fees or the transaction fees about $100 is outrageous. So that's why we actually did this on Binance Smart Chain. So you can see DeFi lending protocols on Binance Smart Chain like Venus and Fortune. Okay, yeah, and we, like I said, we built on the Binance Smart Chain because of the reasons I just mentioned. And we are focusing on adoption by non-crypto savvy users. So we realized that most people who are in the DeFi space, right? Most people who are in the blockchain space, let me not just say like in the blockchain space, they are crypto enthusiasts, right? They are people who they already know that they can, they already understand what crypto is. They already understand to a reasonable extent, even if they don't get the technology, they understand that they can buy and sell coins, right, and make profit. Most of the time, that's like the higher percentage of people you will see in most crypto communities, right? People who are driven by pricing. But then for us, it's more than that. We're more interested in solving a real problem. Now, there are billions of people, right, globally, that face these problems, people who are financially underserved, people who live in economies that an example is Nigeria, where we faced multiple devaluations, right, in the last decade. Like, I can't even count, right? So it's that bad. So focusing on some of these regions, and you realize that in these regions, most people don't even understand what blockchain is, right? Whenever you go to speak to somebody and you're mentioning blockchain and all that, most of the time they just withdraw, because they have more things bothering them, right, than you coming to tell them about transaction hash or how you have very quick block confirmations. They don't care about some of those complexities. It's not their business. What they want is, they want you to solve their problems. They want a situation where they can save their money and know that in the next 1 year, when I come back, I have an amount of money that has been added to this one I saved, and then I can withdraw everything and also not lose value. So even my capital is there, and the value at which I save it is exactly the same value, and I've earned some interest, right? And they don't want third parties to interfere. They don't want to have to go to do so much paperwork, maybe walk into a bank, call somebody, face so many restrictions. So those are the kind of people we're looking at, and most of them don't understand what crypto is, right? Yes, they might have smartphones. There might be some people in Kenya who do like mobile money, although they don't need smartphones for mobile money. But you can see people in that category who also have smartphones, people who do regular bank transfers, but they're looking for more. They want to be, because the fiat currency is not stable and they end up becoming poorer when they deposit or when they save. So we are creating this opportunity for these people. So we are targeting people who are not crypto savvy, which is very important. We're also targeting engineers, right, who are not blockchain engineers, because I'm really excited about what Binance is doing right now, by training a lot of blockchain engineers in Africa, because it's hard to find good blockchain engineers. It's quite difficult. So you realize that over time, most engineers who are out there are still Web 2.0 engineers, if I can put it that way. But it still doesn't stop them from getting the benefits of decentralized finance, right? You must not be a blockchain engineer before you can actually enable DeFi on your platform. So that is what we are doing. We've actually developed our SDK. We should have it live for people to start interacting with by second week of April. So you have that between first week and second week of April. We should have it live. So even if you're not a blockchain engineer, you don't understand how the blockchain works, you can just take this SDK, integrate it into your existing Web 2.0 app, or if you're a blockchain engineer, your Web 3.0 app, and you're good to go. So we've seen that there's a gap, especially when it comes to the people who use your platform as regular individuals or institutions, and also for developers as well. Okay, so we're trying to just bridge that gap and bring everyone on board. And yeah, of course, our code was written in Solidity. I know I'm talking to mostly engineers here, like the developers. It was written in Solidity. We developed the front end with React, and then, of course, with Web3 to interact with smart contracts. I believe most people here would understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Then, so I don't know, I have 30, I think I've spent most of my time, but to check out our code base, it's open. I'll just try to summarize. We have our code base, it's github.com/Xend Finance. So we have, you can see our repos, they are there. We have a lot of repositories, but not all has been made open source, but most of the repos are there on the Binance Smart Chain, the integrations, how everything was done. You can also visit we have a documentation page which is constantly being updated. You can visit docs.xend.finance, docs.xend.finance. When you visit docs.xend.finance, you'll be able to see our documentation. So you can see the list of the smart contracts we have, so the addresses, and you can start interacting with them. Okay. You can usually my advice is it's good to test things on, not on the mainnet directly, but on a fork of the mainnet. So using tools like Ganache will help you a lot. So you can, because the addresses we have there are mainnet addresses, right? So you can deploy, you can use Ganache, create a fork of the mainnet on your local machine, and then you interact with it. It makes life a lot easier, and it gives you that idea of how everything will run on the mainnet. So Ganache works with Binance Smart Chain, works with Ethereum blockchain, and we're going to be updating our doc so you can actually see the URL. But if you're familiar with Ganache, of course, you should know how to just create a fork of the Binance Smart Chain mainnet, and just so you can interact with our smart contracts. Yeah. So I'd like to, since we have a lot of engineers here, I'd like to give an assignment or a homework, and you can always, when you've solved it, you can always come to our Telegram community and boss the admin, tell us that, okay, you've solved this, it was from this event, and we can review it, right? So or we will also, to make things very easy, we can also create a Google form, to enable people submit. But yeah, feel free to just jump into our Telegram community and point us to your project. So what we want to do is, I'd like you to integrate the Xend Finance smart contracts into your existing smart contracts, right? To offer savings features to your users, right? So like I mentioned, our smart contracts are already available. The code is already there on GitHub. You can go study the code, see how things are working. And we're also happy to get feedback. Maybe you've seen a bug somewhere, you've seen, some typo, or, just feel free to reach out to us. And then on Telegram, we have our own specific technical group on Telegram. So you guys can, once you say you want to join that technical group, we're happy to have you in the technical group, because it's like an invites-only group. Or you can join the general group, is Xend Finance on Telegram. I'll show a QR code next, so you can scan. Now, secondly, we're going to also like the engineers to integrate the Xend Finance SDK into their existing web or mobile app to offer saving features to users. So if you're not even a blockchain engineer, but you're a regular Web 2.0 engineer, it's still very fantastic. You can get your project or your product to use DeFi, right? So if you can do both or any of the two, fantastic. So we're going to be giving 1,000 BUSD, for the 3 best use cases. So you can join our Telegram channel. Yeah, you can scan this QR code, right, to join our Telegram channel. And once you're done with your integrations or whatever, just ask and just send us a message, or we can also invite you to our invite-only Telegram channel, so you can meet other people, other technical people who are there. And yeah, feel free to also report anything you feel is maybe it's not correct, or you have suggestions on improvements. We are building like an open community, so we want people to be able to express themselves the way they want to. Thank you very much, and I was really happy to speak to all of you. Yeah, I think that will be all from me.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ugo. That's actually a very great way to cap it all up. Guys, that's exciting. Ugo, you talked about giving away $3,000 in your community for.
Yeah.
Do you want to just go over it again? Let's see if we
Okay,
can
sure.
inspire some dev users here.
Okay, yeah. So what I said was we're going to have 1 second. Let me just go to that slide. So we're giving out assignments, right? To integrate our smart contract into an existing smart contract, a project that of course has an existing use case. For example, there's a developer that messaged me about, I think it was 2 weeks ago on Telegram. I was like, wow, that he likes what we're doing, and he has been building something. I should check it out. So I saw he was building something interesting, in the banking system. And he was like, and I was like, oh, cool, you can integrate smart contracts, and then he was like, yeah, so he has already started doing that, right? So these are things that we expect people to do, and depending on the use case, because we are not just looking at you integrating the smart contract, because you can easily just maybe integrate it and then it's like maybe you're doing exactly the same thing. But we're looking at the overall project. Okay, what were you building before? And then what value is Xend Finance now offering to your users? So even if you don't have any users, it's fine. Like, you must not be like maybe you must not have 1,000. This is an incentive, right? This is something to encourage you to develop more on the Binance Smart Chain, to encourage you to develop more, in the crypto and the blockchain space. So yeah, even if you don't have users, as long as you have a great idea, you're able to build something, right, with this, and then we're good. So we're going to be giving $1,000 each to the best 3 use cases. So I'll review that with my team. Yeah.
All right, great. Like I said, we saved the best for the last, and it's already evident. Thank you so much, Ugo, for this interesting session. Obviously, we'll take questions, but at the end of Yele's session, so we kind of like keep to time. I already see some interesting questions, which I know Yele would love to answer. There are questions that border around team building and, co-founder, the co-founder structures that work, especially in this part of the world. So Yele, I think let's give you the floor. So you just take us through your experience.
Thanks very much, Ben. Ugo, that was a great talk. And I think for me, it's just really great to see your growth as an entrepreneur. I think from 2018, it was very clear that you were going to do some interesting things in the ecosystem, but watching you grow as an entrepreneur, building out Xend has been really, really great to see. And I hope that some of the participants on Zoom, watching on YouTube, look at Ugo's story as something that they would like to emulate. Like Ugo said, they're still in the beginning of their journey, and there's a lot that they can do. But it's just super exciting to see that growth over the last 2.5, 3 years. And I'm pretty sure that there are a few individuals within the BSc Africa community that would also do incredible things moving forward. And that future is exciting for me. It's really great that Ugo went first, because I think some of the things I wanted to talk about, he's touched on them. But there are also some other things that I've seen in the questions, below, and I will try and address. They're part of what I'm going to talk about, so I'll try and address everything within this talk. But like Ben said, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and when we get into the Q&A session, we will address those particular things. So for me, I'm always quite philosophical when I think about crypto. I didn't get into crypto because of the price actions and because of how much money one can make. For me, crypto offers Africans a lifeline. A lot of us have seen our countries over the last decades, and Africa as a continent really suffer from economic mismanagement, devaluation and inflation of our currencies, and just poor and bad governance that has actually led to economic failures across the continent, right? You hear that various countries in Africa have the highest poverty rates, Nigeria being one of them. We have low education, low healthcare, and this really sucks because when you look at the young people of Africa, toe to toe, I've been in various countries across the world, and I'm like, it's not really about the talent of the individual, right? So Africans, in my opinion, have some of the best people, and as a community and as a collective, we really shouldn't be where we are. Unfortunately, when you look at other countries across the world that have gone through decades of economic growth and development, a lot of them comes from good governance, right? So the governments created policies and enabling environments that supported entrepreneurship, investment, and capital allocation that led to growth of these economies. In Africa, unfortunately, our parents and our grandparents and forefathers have been waiting for our governments to take better decisions and take decisions where they put the citizens first and put the country first. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And I think that blockchains and digital currencies offer us a lifeline, right? And the way I think about it is, for the first time, there are two big ideas behind crypto and blockchain. One is that we have an alternative or a parallel financial system that we as individuals can build, can control, and create financial services and wealth on top of, that are not dependent on any middleman or any centralized authorities or governments. I think that's a very, very, very powerful thing. Number two is this idea of decentralized coordination. That is, regardless of, we are creating economic structures where there is no need for trust. When you go on something like Uniswap and you deposit your Ethereum in exchange for Xend, or you deposit, you go on Pancake or Bakery and you deposit your BUSD in exchange for BNB or Cake, there is no individual that you're interfacing with, right? And even though at the moment these are trading protocols, the idea that we can expand this same concept from trading to payments to credit and so much more, pretty much any financial service that we are currently dependent on central banks and governments for, and traditional banking institutions, we can do this with code, we can do this with protocols, and that creates an opportunity for us as individuals to build products and protocols and services that allows us to move Africa forward, right? So every single individual here has the potential to create something that can actually make the lives of 1 billion Africans better. And I think like for all of us, we have to always understand and remember that fact. This is why we're in crypto, and our generation has the potential to make Africa and change Africa for the better, right? So that's kind of like the first one. The second thing for me is why BSC, why Binance Smart Chain? I remember when I started hearing about the fact that Binance was, that there was a community-driven project wherein we're going to have a blockchain that was going to support smart contracts but with low fees. And I was super excited because, compared to a lot of other, blockchains and smart contracts blockchains out there, the idea of low fees, right, actually solves one of the biggest problems that we knew that prevented blockchains from driving adoption in Africa, right? When you look at traditional financial services across Africa, one of the consistent themes is actually low fees. In Nigeria, for instance, you pay less than 52 Naira, which is about maybe 20 cents per transaction. Across the world, in Kenya, in Ghana, when money is prevalent, the fees are extremely low, right? And as Ugo mentioned in his talk, when you want to now send value on something like Ethereum or like any other blockchain that has high transaction fees, it just means that those protocols and those platforms cannot work in Africa. Nobody, I run Bundle, and we have users that are always saying things like, why are we charging $20 to move USDT, or why are we charging $15 to move a small amount of Bitcoin? And we are like, we don't set the prices, right? That's kind of like the price that is being set by miners in order to process your transactions. And so because of how kind of like transaction fee sensitive Africans are, right, we need a platform, we need a protocol that essentially makes fees as low as possible. And I think what I'm super excited about is today, we're not even talking about level 2 or layer 2 protocols for Binance Smart Chain. But in the future, there will be, layer 2 protocols for Binance Smart Chain. So if you're able to do a transaction on Binance Smart Chain that is costing you, between 50 cents and 80 cents, regardless of the value, you can imagine what a layer 2 protocol the cost of a layer 2 protocol would be, right? That means it's going to be maybe less than 1 cent. And that is super, super exciting. I'm seeing some people saying they can't hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sure. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys. So for me, I'm just super excited about this idea that we have a blockchain that is Africa first. And, I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of the guys, some of the early people in within the Ethereum community and, in Europe and in the US. And I was like, wow, like, I want that feeling in Africa. Like, what does an Africa-focused blockchain community look like, right? And so everyone on this call, everyone in the BSC community, like, we have our own opportunity to build our own kind of like, our own ecosystem of products and actually show the world that like we have the talent, we have the skill sets. And unlike the rest of the world, whereby they don't have the same level of problems that we do, in Africa, we are going to be solving real problems using crypto, right? So we're not thinking about things about speculation. I mean, like you saw Xend, right? Like the idea that we can abstract the complexities of, blockchain protocols, but still offer high yields to underserved communities is a super powerful one, right? I invested in a couple of projects like Cowrywise that was returning, I think maybe anywhere from like 7% to 15% per annum in returns, but in NGN. Now, when you understand that the inflation of let's say Naira is double digits a year, that means that if let's say you gained 10% from some of these, like treasury bills, all these investments, but if you lost 14% to inflation, then you've not really gained anything at all, right? But with a lot of these DeFi protocols, right? When you gain 7%, when you gain 10%, essentially you've actually made US dollar-based returns. Plus the fact that a lot of these protocols actually give you access to tokens that incentivize the network, and usually these tokens can also appreciate in value, right? So it's almost like a no-brainer. But again, most people don't want to be connected to this, to don't want to think about the complexities of the technology. You know, one of the ideas I always talk about is, you know, when you think about a car, right, and a car engine, most people are very comfortable getting into a car to drive, like to enter a car and go from A to B, right? You know, not everybody who does that knows how to drive a car. So a smaller subset of people can actually drive a car. Then a smaller subset of people, so if you have, let's say, 1 million people that can get into a car and go from A to B, maybe you have 100,000 people that can drive a car. And then you have 10,000 people that know how to fix a car. And then you have maybe like 100 people that can build a car, right? The point of technology is not about everybody understanding the inner workings of, you know, how this stuff works. When you go to your room light and you put on a switch and the light comes on, you don't really, most people don't understand sort of like the technology behind electricity. You just know that my room is dark, I press the switch, the light comes on and I have light, right? I think that as engineers and as developers, we have to begin to think about blockchain that way, wherein we're saying, what is the problem that we're solving, and how do we abstract, you know, the layers of complexities from our end user in a way that, you know, this thing just solves a problem for them in a delightful and useful way, right? So again, with BSC, we have an opportunity to build a community, Africa First blockchain community, where we are building real life solutions for our people, right? And that for me is super, super exciting. Like, you know, it's like being a part of the Ethereum community when it was getting off the ground. It's like being a part of the Bitcoin community was getting off the ground. You know, this is our chance to build our own community, build our own tools, and solve real problems. So the next thing is, how do I find ideas, right? Like, where do ideas come from? And to be honest, I think, like, you know, there are various ways to think about, like, you know, ideas. I have a notepad where I'm always jotting down ideas. I probably have, I don't even know, 25 plus ideas, and I can only work on maybe a couple at any particular point in time. But the first thing is, have a notepad, right? And as you go through your day, as you live your life, when you feel a pain point, you think something like, I wish this existed, or someone is telling you about some issue or some challenge that they had, make a note of that. In my opinion, good ideas start with problems, right? You want to really understand, like, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And number two is, how many people are affected by this problem? The biggest issue a lot of entrepreneurs make is that they come up with ideas and it's like a nice to have, which is okay, right? Like, there's some things, not everything is like a really, really, you know, painful problem. But if it's a problem that a lot of people have, then that's also quite valuable as well. So in my mind, if I was thinking about it as a formula, it's like, okay, what is the problem, and what is the grading of this problem on a scale of 1 to 10, multiplied by how many people have this problem on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So if you have a problem, if you have something where it's like, oh, this is not really painful, and very few people have this problem, then that is probably a bad idea to consider working on. But if you have something like, okay, for instance, let's say a social network, right? The problem that social networks solve, and is not as painful as saying, oh, I want to pay for my child's school fees and I don't have access to credit. How do I help my child get a better education, right? That's a different problem from, I'm at home, I'm bored, and I wish I could spend my time, or kind of just spend my time doing something that is interesting, right? And actually, social networks, the problem to solve is boredom. But then millions and billions of people are bored every single day, and that's the trigger that makes you open up Twitter or open up Instagram or Snapchat, and you spend 5-10 minutes before you jump back into work, whatever the case may be, right? So these are the two things to kind of think about problems. The final part of thinking about ideas, right? And this is the third variable, is how do I get users, right? There are lots and lots of really great ideas, but they never see the light of day in code because they never figured out a distribution strategy. They never figured out, how do I get my first 10 users, my first 100 users, my first 1,000 users? You know, in the early days of being an entrepreneur, when you don't have that network, you're better off building something that you know you can distribute to a couple of users. And I think that part is very, very, very important. So I have a bit of a cold. Like thinking about distribution and saying, how do I get my product in front of users is where the vast majority of companies fail. The beauty about kind of like distribution is, if you know how to do unscalable things to reach your first 100, 200 users, ideally, if you built a product that solves a problem and you build something people love, those same users should help you get your next couple of users, right? So, if you don't know how to unscalably acquire your first 100, 200 users, then you probably are going to struggle as an entrepreneur, right? And sometimes I always tell people that if you want to build something in the future, you probably want to first build a community, because if you have that community, you've created a distribution channel for you to build something on top of. So people who are already active on social media, people who are starting newsletters, who are doing podcasts, who are creating Telegram communities, in a way, they're already jump starting a distribution channel, so that by the time they're ready to launch something to the world, they know how to get those first groups of users. Now, one of the things I think about with Bundle every single day is, how do I make it easier for African developers to reach scale? We're fortunate enough to, I think by the end of this week, we'll probably cross over 200,000 users on Bundle. That's a network that I would love to open up to, African developers, and we're like, okay, you built something interesting. Why don't you use our ecosystem to reach users, right? So over time, there'll be other ecosystems like that accelerate growth for the average African developer. But I think as an entrepreneur, you want to really think about your idea across those three variables. So to go back on it again, the first thing is, what is the problem severity? How painful is this problem you're trying to solve? Number two is, how many people have this pain point? And then number three is, how do I get this? If I'm successful in building the product, how do I get this product into the hands of people? And it's okay for you to not know how you're going to get to, 10,000 users or 50,000 users, but you need to be able to get to 100 to 200 users. And in the early days, you're going to do things that don't scale, right? When I started Bundle, like I was broadcasting, the app to like all my friends, and I was using Twitter, and and it was kind of like unscalable. Obviously, it wasn't quite the same as starting something from the ground up, because of some of the things I've done in the past, right? But you really have to be comfortable doing unscalable things, and quite uncomfortable things like, hi friend, I just built this thing. Do you want to check it out and give me feedback, right? So that's kind of like that how to go about finding ideas. Now, finding co-founders, as an investor, it's so difficult to fund single co-founders. However, as a technical person, you actually have an edge, right? So, I would invest in a single technical founder than invest in someone that is non-technical and doesn't have a co-founder. In fact, if there were two non-technical founders and one technical founder building the same product, I would invest in the technical founder. Why? Because the startups are freaking hard, right? And there are a lot of variables and sort of too many things that you have to get right to be successful. But, the one thing that is within your control is your product. And if you're technical, you can iterate on your product, you can make changes, and you can improve your product based on feedback, right? At Bundle, we launched something called CashLink a week and a half ago. And as opposed to building it inside of the app, we built it as a web product because we wanted to get feedback very quickly and iterate on, the user experience and journey. Now, when the product launched, it definitely wasn't, there were some issues with it. And over the last, we've been shipping updates every 6 hours. And, it's gotten better over time. And that's kind of like the power of being technical. You can improve your product based on the feedback that your users are giving you. So in my opinion, like I remember the first startup I ever did, I dropped out of uni. I was building a social network, like a lot of people who get into tech, and we're inspired by Zuckerberg. But I was not even technical, right? So I outsourced development. Took so long to build, and it was a real challenge. Luckily during that kind of like 14-month period, I picked up technical skills. I learned how to design, learn iOS development and things like that. So I was a lot more useful as an entrepreneur, but I think the starting point, in my opinion, is to be technical. And if you're technical, it's actually quite easy for you to attract non-technical founders. The problem is, how do you know if a non-technical person is good, right? So a lot of people can say things like, oh yes, I'm good at business development, I'm good at sales, I'm good at marketing. But the truth is that anyone can say that. What I would advise is, let them start working with you informally. Have discussions around like equity very early on. When you get what you're going to give, but do not give away equity, or do not kind of like confirm that this person is your co-founder without giving them some little project or something to start on. So for instance, maybe you have your product, you're thinking of building out your Telegram community. There's one that is sort of like interested in working with you. They can work with you in kind of building out that Telegram community and see how well they do in kind of building your community and, doing some biz dev or business related tasks or some marketing related tasks and see how well they do. The second thing is, I think, go through friends. Referrals are friends or trusted networks. Referrals are very, very, very important. Referrals and references are very, very important. If I'm hiring someone from a business perspective, I usually like to hire or work with people that a friend that I trust is making that recommendation. And then I can also get references to back up the quality of work that person has done in the past, right? So again, as someone that is technical, it's actually easier for you to build a team than a non-technical person. And then interestingly enough, like technical founders can learn, it's easier for technical founders to learn the business side of running a startup than it is for a business person to learn how to do tech, right? So in the Web2 world, Shola, for instance, of Paystack, good friend of mine and an advisor and mentor, he was technical, learned the business sides. Almost all of my founders are microtraction from Timmy of Bitcoins, Ugo, Xend, Achu from Bitsika. So many of these guys were technical, built their products, but then developed the business skills to actually run their businesses. So the summary of kind of like this part of the conversation is that it's actually, given the potential variables or different types of founding teams, being technical actually is the easiest. Being technical, having a co-founder or having a team is where you want to be, but the one step below that is being technical, right? And these are the steps you take to find a co-founder or to build your team. And it's a lot more challenging to be non-technical and try to find a team. If someone that is non-technical on this call is thinking about how to find team members, I recommend going to hackathons, right? I remember in the early days when I was trying to become technical and kind of like, meet developers, I was going to hackathon every 2 weeks and we were just building products and, I was meeting people, meeting them socially, because when you co-found the business or work on a startup, like you're going to spend so much time with your teammates, right? So you have to be able to hang out with those people socially. You have to like them as individuals, as persons. You have to be value aligned and culturally aligned. And getting that takes time. You can't rush someone that you want to spend, 5-7 years building something with. And if you don't get your team right, you would really, really struggle. If you remember Ugo's presentation, the first thing he wrote was the team. Even if you're technical, again, I think with this community, and all the stuff that the Binance team, the Binance Africa team is thinking about, we're going to be doing a lot of hackathons, and I hope that we can build a very strong, community feel, and we have a ton of projects that, end up, being successful and raising capital and having impact on the continent. So, I guess the last part of my talk is how to raise money. I think raising money as a cryptocurrency project is actually easier than raising money as a Web2 project, although it's getting better. I remember 3.5 years ago when I started Microtraction, it's very difficult for teams to raise capital. At the time, giving 15K, as Microtraction was a lifeline for a lot of entrepreneurs because nobody else was investing in technical founders who had like an idea. Today it's a lot better. There are a lot more funds, and people can see the successes of the broader tech ecosystem across Africa. And I think crypto is only just getting started. It's getting hotter. But I think what I love most about crypto, in my opinion, is the ability to build community-owned or community-driven projects, right? At the end of the day, Binance remains, in my opinion, the most successful ecosystem. I don't think we can call Binance a company at this point. It's an ecosystem of multiple projects and companies. And it all started with an ICO, an ICO, 15 million. And anybody who was involved in that ICO, if they held on to their BNB, they are incredibly successful, right? My dream for Africa is to create sort of like funding ecosystems or funding networks that allows us to replicate the Binance funding and success model, right? In my opinion, like that is how we create wealth for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, and for the continent. It's not really about like, US or non-African or even like investors or like super wealthy people supporting projects or investing in companies and then waiting for us to have a large exit, like Paystack to Stripe, or taking the company public in the traditional sense. I think that is, in 20 years from today, that would feel like an outdated model, because there will be so many instances of companies that had token networks where the ownership in those companies were by their users, right? So for me, one of the key things, I think about the future of the African blockchain ecosystem in foundational blocks. One of the foundational blocks is being able to raise capital. Like at the end of the day, a lot of the companies we know and love, even in the Web2 world, a lot of them were started with less than 50K, sometimes 25K. Crypto allows you to raise a lot more money than that, But obviously there are some disconnects wherein you have cryptocurrency projects that have not really built anything, but then have token networks or token values in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and then things crash down. So yes, we still have to figure out how to make sure incentives are aligned and things like that, but a lot of people are working on those problems, and I think that will solve them. In the interim though, for instance, Binance Smart Chain has a fund for Binance Smart Chain projects. There are a bunch of kind of like cryptocurrency companies now in Africa, and players that are like investing in companies. The main thing is build something, right? Like as opposed to trying to think about raising money from the get-go. It's more about the things I talked about. Find a problem, make sure that a lot of people have that problem, make sure you know how to get the product to market, and have a very strong team, very, very critical, and have a vision of the, for the future and of the world that you believe your team is the best position to solve it. And I believe that if you tick all those boxes, you should be able to raise capital. And the beauty of this community that we've built is you have access to, Emmanuel, to Ben, myself, Ugo, to the other facilitators, right? Like you are not alone in this journey. And if you're building something that makes an iota of sense and solves a problem, there will be support for you, right? There will be support for you. There's capital for you. And the world is your oyster. So hopefully this was helpful. I'm super excited and I can't wait to see what you all build. And yeah, let's build the future we want for Africa and change the narrative of our continent for the better. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yele. That was exceptional, quite exceptional. Before we go into the question and maybe a few more remarks, I would like to just put another reminder to the students that the topic submissions has commenced and will actually be closing today. So we expect that every team should send in their selected topics, and the form is actually on the TG group and has been shared with your team leader. So ensure that your team leaders have submitted, just to be sure, just make sure that your team leaders have submitted the topics for your projects. Also, like we mentioned at the beginning of the call, the deadline for submission of projects itself is between 10th and 17th of April. We expect to have all of your submissions, and the details are actually also in the Telegram and Discord rooms. So by the 17th, you should have collected all the projects that you have built, and we should begin screening, right? So another important update is that on the 24th, we would have your the live demo show, right? The demo show is going to feature at least 2,000 to 3,000 participants come and watch the presentation from the best projects that would have been selected. We're looking at getting 10 projects that we want to show to the ecosystem, the community, that this is what this 8 weeks program have been able to put together. So guys, on the 24th, we expect to have that 10 projects would be available for the demo show. One thing I want to add is that for team members, you might experience some form of it's kind of like a new environment, right? Imagine you guys to work with people you have not met before. You might not even know their second names, but you need to understand that your cooperation is very paramount if your if your project is to scale, right? We look out for your cooperation. We look out for your contribution to the team, right? So what we monitor is that our facilitators throughout the 8 weeks will go to the back end, look at your GitHub links and see how often you guys have done commits and who in particular, right, was part of the process. These are things we look out for to be sure that you are actively involved in the project and that you actually showed some form of commitment to the team. So please support your team leaders as much as you can. If you can take more responsibility than was afforded to you, please go ahead and do so in the best interest of your team. And like Ugo mentioned earlier, he has even opened the reward pool to many other persons. So even if you do not make it to the top 10, you still stand a chance to participate in the Xend Finance community activities. So all of this being said, I'm really excited that we've been able to pull this off in Africa, the first actually, and it's kind of like the longest, and it was worth it, right? So let me take a few questions here before I let us ask. Okay, so somebody's asking, can we get the Twitter and LinkedIn handles of the speakers? Sure, we can. I'll just ask. We would share it with you in your communities and even on this call. Yeah, so we'll share that with you. Okay. Does Xend, I think this goes to Ugo. Does Xend have an affiliate program or partnership for people who run crypto communities?
Oh yeah, so we have something called the Zen Finance Warriors Ambassador Program. But unfortunately, the applications are closed. But what we can do is we, of course, that's the beautiful thing about crypto is community. So if you're interested in that program or you have like very good crypto community, just join our Telegram channel and then ping the admin or ping me, right? And yeah, I can now redirect you to the right person to speak with about that. Just like introduce yourself and your community. And I mean, we can have you on board. Yeah. So yeah, we have a program, the ambassador program.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Ugo. So this question, I think it goes to the both of you. But there are like 4 questions in one from the Q&A chat. The first one is, where can someone who finds it difficult to become a developer but have innovative ideas fall in? So who wants to jump on that first?
I think Yele spoke about that a lot, so he can take that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think my recommendation is the beauty of a lot of crypto projects is that, you know, they're essentially open communities, and actually, crypto is a lot more than the technology itself. You know, in fact, maybe the community and community management and user education and a lot of the non-tech roles are very, very important. So my advice recommendation is to find the project that you love, find the community and figure out how you can add value. A number of people who have ended up joining the bundle team, and even some people who have joined Binance, stood out because of how useful and helpful they were in the community and kind of like the value that they showed those teams and those projects, right? It's very, very difficult to be non-technical and stumble upon a really good developer that would just start working with you on a project. Like that is very rare. It's not impossible, but it's rare. So you're better off kind of figuring out where you can show value, join an existing project and then build your network from there. Maybe whilst you're in that project or community, you meet other developers who can see the kind of work that you do, and they'll be interested in kind of working with you on the project. I think even when I've met my first kind of technical partner, that was sort of how it happened. And we were going for a lot of hackathons. He saw me at almost every student hackathon consistently for like 3-4 months. And I was always, whether I was the one doing the product design, doing the pitching, and just being kind of like helping coordinate things. And it was like, let's work on something together, right? So you can't rush that process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great one. Ugo, do you want to touch on that too?
Yeah, I totally agree with Yele. So I've had so many, I've had a lot of experiences with Zen Finance. Our community has grown so well, and you realize that most people that actually stood out currently have, most of them already are part of the ambassador program. In fact, they didn't even have to announce or they didn't have to fill forms, right? We just brought them in. We even have the first engineer, I had to hire last week, a couple of days ago. from Turkey. He built basically the Turkish community. I didn't even know he was an engineer, right? Super smart dude, very young, built the Turkish community, promoting, grew to over 2,000 users in less than 2 weeks. I mean, that was just insane. Real people, the Turkish community is very good right now, you know? So he now reached out to me and told me, oh, that he could actually still write code. And I was like, are you serious? He said, yeah. But I didn't have any room to employ anybody. I didn't want to employ anybody. I didn't have to. But seeing what he had done and also realizing that, look, this guy is also, because I looked at, and, you know, I didn't have a choice but to say, okay, do you know what? Just come on board. You know, those kind of things. So there are things that can drive people to want to work with you, but you have to add value, like Yele said first. You know,
yeah. Thank you so much, Ugo. Makes a lot of sense. I think that basically answers the second question. So the second question is, can that same person play in the tech industry? Sure, you still have a place in the tech industry. The third question, what teach yourself blockchain solidity software can you recommend? Okay, what teach yourself blockchain solidity software can you recommend? That's self-learning platform.
Yeah, so there is this video on, like, I just have like a couple of links. I'll just give me a second. Let me just know if I can. I usually, anytime,
Okay.
1 second. It's not here. Do you know what? Just while we're doing this, I'll just take a few. Okay, yeah, I've found the docs. Yeah, okay, I'll share this.
Okay.
So whilst Ugo is sharing the link, I think another place I would kind of recommend is something called Crypto Zombies. It kind of gamifies learning solidity. I think it's also another good place to start, because it's a little bit more, you know, it makes it fun, and, you know, gamifies the experience of learning how to use and write with
You want to say the name again, Yele?
Crypto Zombies.
Crypto Zombies. Okay, sure.
Yeah, I don't know if did you see the like links I shared on?
Yeah, I've seen them. I've also copied them. I'll share with them in the TG. Let me store them here. All right. Thank you guys so much for that. Let me take the next question. Is there a community for true beginners, like people who do not know ABC of Solidity? That's like
community
for true starters, like true starters in the tech space.
Well, I don't know of any community, but you can create one, right? The person can create one, and yeah, you know, that's the thing. Like with this stuff, you can just create one, invite people, and over time, you know, it becomes something that is really huge. Like these links I have here, right? I've had them for more than 9 months now, right? Anytime someone asks me, oh, hello, I'll just copy the thing and paste, because usually I document my learning process and all, everything I learn, I try to document it. So if you can have a community that has this kind of, you know, repository of materials and stuff where people can, I mean, it's going to be really great. I've never thought about it, but I think it's a great idea for this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's it for Ozioma. 2 other questions. Somebody's asking, I don't know if this have been touched on, but it's for you, Ugo. The question is, how can I be a part of Xend Finance? That's not related to the call today, but you can just touch on it.
It depends on what you mean by what part of Zen Finance actually, because we have so many things. That are you talking about? Well, to be a part of Zen Finance, I think it's very easy. Just be active in the community and, make suggestions, bring up ideas, look at what we've done. If you're a technical person, you can look at the code, see how can you improve, find bugs, report bugs, stuff like that. And yeah, I think that way you're already an active member of the Zen community. You don't really have to wait for us to maybe bring out an application and say apply to be a member now. I don't mean that doesn't need to happen, right? Just go there, be active. When people have questions, because one thing we realized, that's why I really like the crypto community. One thing we realized when we started out the project was in less than 2 weeks, we realized that most people who joined were now answering questions of people who were coming in. As admins, we didn't have to really do anything anymore. The community just grew, understood what the project was all about, and then they just kept on answering questions. And now it's as if there isn't any question you ask there that at least someone will not be able to answer, which is like a great thing. So yeah, just join the community and be active. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, guys. Let's take a few questions from the audience. For those who raised their hands, Alenka, are you here? Alenka Santos. Let me allow you to talk. If you can ask a question, go ahead. You can talk now. So we have 4 hands raised. We'll take Alenka, Wanda, Chidera, and Samuel. I think those 4 will be enough for today. Alenka, are you there? Okay. Let's go to Wanda. Wanda, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right. So I'm talking from Ghana. You know that the government within our crypto communities are very, very hostile to pushing this particular idea of crypto business, of course, within this ecosystem. I want to push this question to the CEO of Bundle. The latest communique that was released by the Nigeria CBN was that various crypto businesses or people can deal in crypto, but they cannot work within the banking financial system. So I want to ask you, can there be any innovation? Do we have something that can be done that our crypto industry can exist independent of our normal financial system? Can we handle our own financial ecosystem differently, right? Apart from the normal financial system that we have over here, because it's really, really driving prices up within the various platforms, and it's increasing scams and so on. Yeah. Thank you.
So, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sure.
Yes, so I think, a lot of these things are already in the works. Fundamentally, when you look at, P2P products or platforms over the last 6 weeks, you will see a growth in the user and transaction activity across those platforms. Now, because people still have to go from crypto to fiat and vice versa, we would never really I don't think there'll be a situation whereby we don't have that interface with the traditional financial systems across the world. Now, the difference between P2P and, let's say traditional products like Bundle, for instance, is that it's a lot more decentralized, right? So Bundle might not be able to have a bank account, might not be able to use Flutterwave or Paystack. But with P2P products, essentially, you have users who are sending cash on one end and on the other end sending crypto to themselves, right? So I think that we would continue to see the growth of that activity. In China, for instance, users, most crypto exchanges or no crypto exchange has a bank account. Nobody can use Alipay or or WeChat as an exchange, but it's still one of the largest markets in the world. So for me, like I think like it's just a phase that we're going to go through, and as we evolve and improve these P2P products and people become familiar with with how it works, it becomes the norm. Number two is what I personally care about is the number of Africans within the decentralized finance space, right? So I'm talking about decentralized wallets that are easy to use, where I'm sending you NGNT, or I'm sending you USDT or BUSD, and it feels like a normal cash transaction, but is a fully decentralized application. If you have more and more people having these wallets on their phone and transacting with each other, then you probably wouldn't even need to go back, go into traditional fiat, right? So I think as builders and players in the ecosystem, we just have to be a lot more intentional about building products that the average person can use.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Yele. Um, let's take Tidera's question. Tidera, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Unmute yourself first and then go ahead. Okay, while we wait for her to do that, Samuel, try unmuting yourself and ask your own question.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I dropped a question earlier, about 6 of them, in the Q&A section, and so I've just read through them. So I said, based on my experience, marketing and prospects, as discussed earlier, becomes the foundation of success of projects. However, how do one handle the tokenomics part of the project? Speaking of tokenomics, I mean distributing and understanding how it works with team, how the funds are channeled in this project, how to scale through inflation, how to keep tokens afloat based on different market conditions, pump and dumps are the current trends reigning to keep token prices high or stable. In your opinion, what are the models to keep the project and project token afloat? Lastly, please, can you kindly drop a link or material? Okay, link or material to just to educate one about tokenomics from the ground up. Thank you.
Okay, so I can take this, and then Ugo can actually talk as well, especially because Xend is actually live right now. So tokenomics, for everyone on the call, is just designing incentives or disincentives around a token to essentially allow the token to be able to capture value, right, and grow in value over a sustained period of time. I think it's probably one of the more underrated parts of crypto, and it's still an emerging, let me use the word emerging science. I don't think anybody has the answers, or there is a set of best practices, if you're being critically honest. However, there are a few things that we are also beginning to see, right? At the end of the day, when you talk about inflation is usually by choice when you're designing designing like your token supply and incentives. So for instance, Bitcoin is deflationary by design, in that there is a fixed amount of tokens or Bitcoins that will ever exist in the world. BNB was, I believe, 210 million or 200 million, and with the token burns, you're actually reducing the available supply. Ethereum is more open, and I don't think there is a fixed cap on the supply of or the maximum supply of Ethereum. So again, the idea of inflation in quotes, that is a choice by the protocol teams. Now, what is super interesting about tokens in general, in my opinion, is, these digital networks are almost like, similar to evolution. If someone has designed something, or there's a project that you like and you're not happy with the tokenomics, you can always create a fork of that project and kind of try and build your own. Now, the question is, can you develop or create a community that would also buy into and support the idea that you're trying to push, right? So when you look at Bitcoin has a number of forks, and a lot of those forks are created because some members of the Bitcoin community had a different opinion on how the Bitcoin network should evolve. Now, over the last 10 years, Bitcoin Core, or the first Bitcoin network, has still remained the dominant one. So Bitcoin Cash at some point, I'm not sure where it ranks now, but there's Bitcoin Cash, there's Bitcoin Diamond, there's Bitcoin, so many, Bitcoin forks, but they are still not, they've not been able to grow or maintain the community that Bitcoin Core has today, right? So, if you're trying to learn about tokenomics, like, I think the best resource to me is Binance Research. You can look at the number of Binance Launchpad projects and just read, how these tokens were designed. In my opinion, I personally like projects that have a fixed supply, have some mechanism for token burn so that they can reduce the actual, overline, reduce the supply in circulation over time. I also think that you probably want to have some kind of staking mechanism wherein users who lock their tokens, reducing the overall amount of tokens in supply, can actually earn more tokens because they are contributing some kind of value to the network, such as in case providing liquidity. If, for instance, is an automated market maker like Bakery or PancakeSwap. What else will I say? I would say the team should have like a minimal amount of tokens, because you actually want, or not minimal, the team must be incentivized. But when you see a token whereby 90% of the tokens with the team and then 10% of the community, then that's like unbalanced, right? You want something whereby the community and future committee members have enough tokens that they can farm or like earn for themselves as they contribute value to the network. And then for the team as well, and for any investors or advisors, they should be able to publicly communicate that they have vesting. So not that they are selling when they list their tokens on any whether it's Pancake or any of Uniswap, they're going to just dump all the tokens that they have once the price has appreciated significantly, right? So kind of like locked and vested tokens, a capped max supply with some deflationary mechanism like token bonds, staking, so that users who lock or the tokens that they've earned, or provide liquidity to the network can even earn more tokens. And then personally, I'm a big fan of governance, right? I don't think enough projects have done enough to kind of figure out how do you use your tokens to give your community access to features, or even kind of use those tokens as a mechanism to vote on how potential ideas that the team should consider, right? So those are kind of like my favorite when I think about, and even for like BXD, when I think about like that's Bondu's old token, I think about how I want that to, the role I want the token to play. These are the main tokenomics elements that I look at. But if you want to deep dive more, I just recommend checking out Binance Research and looking at all the projects on there and seeing kind of, how does this token capture value? How did it split the allocation within the teams and things like that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Yele. Ugo, do you want to touch on that also?
Yeah, so I think Yele already mentioned like all the major points, which is when it comes to like tokenomics, token engineering, however you want to call it. The thing is, there isn't just one exact way. It depends on, it's relative. It depends on what the project is trying to achieve, right? So you see some projects that have like Zen Finance, for example, we have a fixed supply. We're actually starting our staking mechanisms. We're going to be starting that off in like a month. We have a governance framework that we're also going to be launching. And of course, buybacks, right? Where you try to reduce the total amount of tokens in circulation. So these are standards. Now there are other things that are coming in. Something like Zen Finance, for example, because people are depositing assets. We are partnering with decentralized insurance projects, and we're also going to be giving people access to be able to like get this insurance with the tokens, right? And also even giving people that have access to the tokens, like the power to cover the cover people's deposits with our tokens. So these are things that are in the works that we're designing. So you realize that for different projects, you might have different mechanisms, token and utility mechanisms that will apply. But overall, right, there are things that you need to put into consideration. Like Yele said, when you're giving out tokens to the investors, you need to make sure you have vesting, right? When you also, for the team as well, it's just it doesn't make any sense to see a design where you have a distribution mechanism where you have 90% to the team and 10% to the community. It doesn't just work, right? So it's actually a very small percentage, not really very small, but a certain amount of percentage to the team. Probably let's say about 10, 20%. 20% might even be very high. And then you realize that it vests as well, right? You can have a cliff or a lockup for about 1 year, and then it vests for 2 years, right? So these are things that when you look at it, you also have, it helps you make some like some decisions about even going into maybe buying tokens of a particular project, because you want to get into something that is long term. So based on a particular protocol team, they are the ones that will design what really works out for them. But there are things that when you want to start your token design, there are things that you really have to look at, and it's a continuous process. So I would like to like go over this when most people might think that, okay, when you have just your token design, it never changes. That's not actually correct, because as time goes on, people might realize some things about their projects that will need some alterations. You will see some big projects that might announce, maybe they started off and they've been doing well, but at some point they'll announce a new token design entirely that is actually from the feedback from mostly from the community, right? Making suggestions and all that. So it's always very important to study those things. And like Yele, I don't really have an article or a book where I have, I think, where you can learn about token engineering in totality. Most times, it's always good to also have, like Yele said, go to the Binance research, study this project, because, for example, at Zen Finance, we have a lot of people from the Binance ecosystem, advising us, and these are guys that have done really well in the space. Looking at, for example, Matic or Polygon, right? These are guys that have, I mean, they have very massive market caps, and they are really growing really well. So when you have some of these advisors, again, talking to you, advising you on some of these things like tokenomics and how your token engineering, it helps out, because they probably failed in one way or the other, or learned from some other person and applied, these things iteratively, and then been able to get to a certain point where they can say that, look, this works for us. So it's a continuous process. But as a retail investor, or however, as well as an investor, I always advise study, or you want to learn this, study multiple projects, because multiple projects have different use cases, and see how they've been able to tailor their token designs or token mechanism to suit or to fit their use case. It will help you a lot, and it will expand your idea of how tokens are going to be designed to be able to protect against some certain things. But one thing you will always know is that there is always a trade-off, right? One side might be going so well, the other side will suffer. So, but you need to actually strike a balance, Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yele and Go. Because of time, we'll just take one more question and I'll let you guys be on your way. Um, Nicholas, are you here? Please unmute yourself and you can talk.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I've really learned a lot today. Uh, so the question I'm asking, because can we try to build something? Because I heard Yele said actually have something called a bundle in place that is trying to solve the financial problem in Nigeria. Because we can see that the peer-to-peer financial aspect is actually is a core problem that we need to solve. That these are giving room to scam and the rest. Although the balance system is actually helping, but we're kind of thinking of building a decentralized peer-to-peer, whereby if somebody can send money and the other party too can send money without any form of scam being in place, because in that of Binance, you can see maybe sometimes people can delay the confirmation and the rest, and there are issues. I don't know. I'm kind of trying to think about this.
Yeah, so I mean, like, we're definitely working on a product in that space. I think the Binance P2P product is probably the best in the market, if I'm being critically honest, in terms of liquidity. Yes, like most products that involve human elements, there's always going to be, some challenges here and there. But again, I think what I've definitely thought about, what does a decentralized version of this looks like? But before you kind of even put a decentralized version, you probably want to first figure it out from a centralized perspective, because it involves human interaction, and the difference between kind of what was I looking for? The difference between P2P and smart contracts is that it's actually person to computer, right? Like peer-to-peer, the whole idea of peer-to-peer is person to person or peer-to-peer. And so it already goes against what, person to computer or person to protocol is. But there are definitely some ideas that we are thinking about, in terms of like what something like that might look like, and maybe something that would roll out. To be honest, my goal as I think about the evolution of Bundle, given some of the recent challenges that we're seeing, is building some kind of Africa focused DAO that funds and supports developers who have ideas that we ourselves can build, but we can support, right? And we have the users, we have access to capital, we have some level of expertise to support people and teams building the other blocks, and not just one, right? So again, even if I think just one P2P platform creates some layer of centralization. We need multiple, right? We shouldn't have just one AMM. We should need multiple AMMs. There shouldn't just be one lending protocol. There should be more, right? The more we have, and the various variations, even, I mean, Ugo said something which I agree, but I also have a slightly different view, in that, I really, really believe that blockchains and the fact that they're open allow us to evolve, our smart contracts slightly different if you don't quite agree on what someone else has done, right? Or you can build and sit on top of existing things, right? So the idea of open finance or decentralized finance, I sometimes think like maybe decentralized finance is not the right word. Is less about decentralization and more about composability, wherein someone has built something and you're like, okay, I'm just going to build something that sits on top of their infrastructure and maybe makes it a little bit easier. And you have like this Lego and building blocks that don't need the permission because they're all open. You don't need to ask permission from the builders of A, and there are multiple versions of A, and that's what creates an ecosystem. But yeah, someone, probably won't be us, might be somebody else, might be someone on this call that we end up building something really cool in the decentralized P2P space. If you're building that, talk to us, we want to fund you.
Cool stuff. Yeah, so Nicholas, I don't know if that is more of a support, you're just trying to raise a support ticket on this call. But honestly, like Yele said, the Binance P2P product is actually built to service you at the highest and the best possible ways, right? So definitely there are a lot of pain points because users try to maneuver the system. But honestly, if you follow the guides and the principles, there's no way you get scammed on the platform. But we can chat more about it. We can even share ideas as to how to, better iterate the platform, for better service. All right, thank you so much. I don't think there's any other question for now. So Chidera, your question, you later typed your question in the group. I think it's still related to materials, where to get resource materials. But the interesting thing about in this industry is that whatever we tell you, you still have to do your research. So you need to, develop that mental skill, the attitude to always check things up yourself, navigate the system. Google is always available. You can ask Google, or you can join communities and ask questions in those communities. Anyway, so to wrap up this call, I would like to just thank Yele, thank Ugo. But before that, I would like to reiterate that for the demo show and the products you'll be building, guys, we want to emphasize that you're just going to need to keep it very simple. We understand that 3 weeks is not too much of time to build something very robust. So we just want to test your commitment skills, your cooperative skills, your collaborative, your mindset actually towards building. And like they said on the call, you need to look out for a very good pain point. Look out for something that you can scale naturally on its own. And work on that. So the goal is just to deliver very simple and interesting MVPs, right? So after the demo show, we'll definitely now go into building solid projects that will display in a hackathon, an Africa-wide hackathon we're planning for Africa, and that is going to the date for this one is going to be announced during the demo show. So you also want to take the opportunity to not just speak to your team members, you also want to navigate, as in just network with all of the participants for this cohort, right? So you might not necessarily be building together with your team members for the hackathon. You can just network, and who knows, you might find your next partner or co-founder, like Yele mentioned. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time. Before we go, last words from Ugo and Yele, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity. Thanks, Binance. I was like super excited when I was invited to speak, because speaking, I always have this thing I say that Africans are we're major consumers of technology, right? Rather than builders of technology. And I'm very happy to support in any way possible to ensure that we start building, right, more than we consume. And one wonderful thing about the blockchain is, there's something, every time I'm with some of my friends, I tell them, look, when the internet boom happened in, I think in 2000 and all that, I was probably very, very young. I probably like 6 years or so. So I couldn't participate, right? Now there is the crypto boom happening. You know, it puts almost every single person on the same level. And there is nothing as beautiful as knowing that, okay, it's more like a racetrack, right? And we are all starting, we are on a level playing field. So the question now is, how fast can you run? You know, what's your stamina? How long can you stay on course? And for me, having that mindset is everything. You know, so I also encourage everybody to know that, look, it's not late, because a lot of people are like, and they always come and like, oh, price of Bitcoin is 60K. We are too late. I'm like, don't look at price of Bitcoin. We are still at a very, very like tender stage. Like there's something CZ, I think he tweeted this morning or yesterday. He said that Bitcoin is closer to zero than $1 million, right? And that what that means, some people might think it's like, oh, he's not saying it in the bad sense, maybe about marketing, about advice, financial advice or anything. But what it means is that we are still at the very early stages of this whole thing. There's so much to be done. There are so many tools that have to be built. So I really want to encourage everybody to keep on building. Like that's the best we can do now. And we're at a level playing field. We can do so much as Africans. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be really all for me. Yeah.
Thanks a lot to go. Yele, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, so thanks everybody who joined the call. Thanks Ben for hosting, Ugo for being an inspiration. I think the challenge is clear. Like Ugo said, we are just in the early phases of the entire blockchain ecosystem. 2018, if you looked at the top 20 assets on CoinMarketCap and looked at it, you know, a year later and even today, you will see that it looks extremely different. I can't wait for a future whereby we're seeing Africa focused or Africa based or Africa founded projects in that top 20. Because again, you know, when I look at some of these protocols and I look at the actual utility and usage, I'm seeing numbers that are like 5,000, 3,000. I think the top ones are maybe around 50,000, right? And you know, as Africa, I genuinely believe that we're a native fit for this technology. And when we build our own things, you know, we're gonna have 100,000, 200,000 within the next, maybe 1 million within the next 5 to 10 years, right? So, you know, if you looked at the early phases of the internet, there are a bunch of companies that started early in, you know, 93, 94. Some of them even were there till 99, and today they are not there at all, right? So, you know, the future is just beginning, it's just getting started. So, you know, let's think about what problems we can solve. Let's identify individuals that we can work with, and let's build the future we want and deserve. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys. Babs is on the call. He has actually been on the call. Babs, do you want to say hi to us before we go? Okay. I think he jumped off, but Babs has actually been the lead person pushing this right from day one. I want to just use this opportunity to say a big thank you to him for the opportunity to host today. Thank you guys for your time, and we'll catch up during the week. Bye, guys.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great weekend.